So today we're going to talk about smartphones. Are they actually safe for children under 16? My name's Dr. Becky Foljambe. I'm an NHS GP and founder of a collective of health professionals from a diverse array of professions called Health Professionals for Safer Screens. We have consultant paediatricians, GPs, psychiatrists, speech and language therapists, psychologists, OTs, nutritionists, public health consultants, and many more. And we're all united in our concerns about the impact of screens on our young people. We are all volunteers, and Health Professionals for Safer Screens is a not-for-profit organisation. We are committed to sharing the latest and most robust evidence in this area that is available. So what do we mean by safe? Well, I'm aware that teachers and educationalists have to be across this enormous document, one of many, keeping children safe in education. Just one paragraph of this enormous statutory document reads, all staff should be aware that technology is a significant component in many safeguarding and wellbeing issues. Children are at risk of abuse and other risks online, as well as face-to-face. In many cases, abuse and other risks will take place concurrently, both online and offline. Children can also abuse other children online. This can take the form of abusive, harassing and misogynist or misandrous messages. The non-consensual sharing of indecent images, especially around chat groups, and the sharing of abusive images and pornography to those who do not want to receive such content. I mean, my word, just that paragraph alone shoulders the most enormous amount of responsibility and burden for keeping children safe. It's a very difficult thing to navigate in this tech-rich environment that we are in. So how safe are they in reality? Well, the incidence of serious harm is now found to be high. More than 90% of child sexual abuse images on the internet are also self-generated, which is a serious concern. And the majority of perpetrators of this sort of abuse are under 18. And whilst children have access to a camera, a messaging app and the internet, there is a severe risk of sexual abuse material being generated or shared. The ESET survey last year found that a quarter of those aged 12 to 17 received unwanted sexual photos or videos, more often from a stranger. The Internet Watch Foundation report of 2021 said sexual abuse imagery of children aged 11 to 13 was most prevalent in 7 in 10 of the incidences of abuse. Mostly girls coerced or encouraged into sexual activities by someone not in the room. The way the perpetrator accessed these children was via a camera and an internet-enabled device, invariably a young girl on a smartphone. Boys are victims of this sort of abuse. It is less prevalent, but unfortunately there's a greater proportion that are victims of the most serious form of sexual abuse towards children, category A. The 2024 Internet Watch Foundation report was even worse reading. 275,655 websites were found to be containing child sexual abuse material, and the involvement of younger children is going up year on year. The involvement of children aged 7 to 10 in 2023 was up 65% from 2022. I don't know if any of you have watched the two-part documentary called Swiped that was on Channel 4. Professor Lisa Henderson, who is a researcher based in York University, headed up this piece of research that involved a 21-day removal of smartphones from a particular cohort of school children's lives. Emma and Matt Willis, who are the celebrities, I guess, who are on this programme as presenters, in this clip, they are showing us the experience of being a 13-year-old or 13-year-old boy or 13-year-old girl going onto these platforms for the first time, and just how easily they're able to access worrying content.
We'll be posing as 13-year-old first-time users to see what content we're served.
So to use TikTok, you need to enter your birth date, right? So this means that they'll see how old you are and customize your experience based on your age, is what they're saying.
Over the next 4 hours, a producer scrolled through both phones as a child might, viewing and saving content, which will have fed an algorithm that then recommends similar videos.
Oh my God.
This is a Minecraft video.
This is
and
what
a
my 8-year-old plays.
And a 911 recording of a man beating his wife and the daughter screaming for help.
What are you getting?
I'm just getting girls. Oh my God. Does anyone else understand that there is no point in life? What? This is some young girl. If I don't make it past 18, I want this song played at my funeral.
Jesus Christ.
If the voices win, just know I love you.
I mean, I don't know what to think about this. Like, it just seems so dark.
Not a chance are they having it.
So pretty alarming how quickly they were showed or taken to harmful content. There is a sexting epidemic. We know the law that it is illegal to send or receive a sext in England under the age of 18. But the sharing of naked pictures is now a norm within teenage culture, with a quarter of under 19s having received an unwanted intimate photo or video, and 15% of 13 to 14-year-olds having sent nudes, with 5% sending them weekly. The 2021 Ofsted review found that 90% of girls and 50% of boys said being sent explicit pictures or videos of things they did not want to see happens a lot or sometimes to them or their peers. There was a clear emotional impact illustrated in this Ofsted report on girls who experienced regular sexual harassment or other harmful sexual behaviour. Well, we would challenge that and take that further. One incident of that image-based sexual abuse happening can have long-term emotional harms. Looking at research from a German researcher back in 2018, he found that particularly girls who had been victims of this sharing of image-based sexual abuse, 74%, just after one incident, were left feeling ashamed, guilty, and humiliated all of the time. 54% always worried that people saw images of them and would think they were willing participants. 51% considered it their fault these images were created, and a third refused to talk about it or denied that these images existed. This horrible pattern of humiliation and shame, all these really horrible emotions that drag down mental health very, very quickly, all resulting from just one episode of this sort of abuse. Exposure to pornography and violence is now so widespread that children feel they cannot opt out. By age 9, 10% have seen pornography, rising to 27% by age 11, and half of children who have seen pornography have seen it by age 13. Frequent users of pornography are more likely to engage in physically aggressive sex acts. 60% of children said they had witnessed real-world acts of violence on social media in the preceding year, and a quarter had seen content promoting violence. I don't know if any of you have listened to About the Boys, a BBC Radio 4 series. It's a very heart-rending and insightful series. I really encourage everyone to listen. It includes young men confessing to the pressure of competing with porn stars or emulating acts such as asphyxiation during sexual activity, and the assumption that this is what girls and women expect. We're also seeing a lot more erectile dysfunction in young men, almost entirely due to the amount and frequency with which they're watching porn, often violent porn, that bears no relation at all to a natural, healthy female form or a natural, healthy sexual relationship. I feel deeply sorry for our young men and how much they're being misled by influencers like Andrew Tate on social media. It is a really massive concern in itself and something we all need to be acutely aware of. It's often said, even from certain reputable organisations that possibly should know better, that vulnerable children need social media, particularly groups like sexual minority groups who are going on social media to find other children like them or to find their tribe. This is misleading because actually vulnerable children are the worst impacted on these platforms. Evidence has shown that children receiving free school meals are more likely to participate in high-risk activities online, such as live streaming. 74% of free school meal children have experienced one online harm, compared to 60% of non-free school meal children. Children in care, care leavers, young carers, children experiencing poverty, and children with additional needs, such as neurodiversity, are also more susceptible to online harms. It's thought to be because they're likely to be on these platforms for long periods of time unsupervised. They also are more keen sometimes to form friendships. They are more vulnerable to being exploited, less able to self-protect, and more at risk of sharing or being coerced into sharing naked images. Social media and online gaming are described as the foundation of county lines recruitment. This is by very senior police officers in this country who have a lot of experience in dealing with this sort of crime. The network of perpetrators actively seeking vulnerable individuals on widely accessible platforms where young people frequently interact is increasing. There was a public notification from Europol talking about extremely violent sexual abuse happening to children who were particularly vulnerable, who were being sought out by these cult-like communities of abusers online. Smartphones are linked to crimes that target and include children. Nearly 40% of robberies in London were for mobile phones in 2023. In 2020, 500 children were mugged a day in the UK, almost all for their mobile phones. At least 27,000 children, with as many as 4,000 in London alone, are believed to be trapped in county lines across the UK. Smartphones are critical to this epidemic of child criminal exploitation, which is being fueled by gangs who use social media to target, groom, coerce, and track the movements of vulnerable children online who are as young as 11. The Internet Watch Foundation shows in 2023 176 reports of sexual extortion containing child sexual abuse material. Boys are targeted most often in these reports received by the Internet Watch Foundation, with analysts frequently seeing evidence of boys being blackmailed by criminals looking to extort money. 3 in 5 of these reports involve 16 and 17-year-olds. Almost a fifth of those arrested for counter-terrorism are under 18. A decade ago, this was just 2%. From my work as a GP with an extra qualification in women's health, I am particularly troubled by this, one of the many problematic dimensions of social media use by teens. This particularly worries me. So we are seeing an increase in teen pregnancies, again, after a decade of bringing these down. It is a disaster that this is starting to happen again. After all that hard work, these rates are going back up since 2021, and abortions in young women are at a record high. I remain adamant that these smartphones and premature access to social media are driving inequality for all the reasons that we've just illustrated. And it is fact that women from deprived backgrounds are 3 times more likely to have an abortion and 20 years less of health than women from wealthier backgrounds. So please imagine that young girl from a deprived background in her bedroom, on her phone, in a sexual relationship, looking for advice online, resorting to social media and being given this terrible, misleading advice that tracking apps or natural fertility methods are going to reliably protect her from an unplanned pregnancy. It is no wonder that we are seeing these pregnancies go up and abortions go up. There's been an almost 50% drop off in the rates of uptake of the oral contraceptive pill. And it is just fact that these women are turning to these platforms that are encouraging this and using tags such as contraception is the new smoking, and then they're being led away from evidence-based, safe in the majority of circumstances, contraception. Women's health leaders are concerned that nonsense about hormonal contraception posted on TikTok and Instagram is driving a dramatic rise in these unplanned pregnancies and abortions. So now to the wider elements of what is meant by safety. When we think of a safe child, we think of the immediate possible threats to them, but also we want to think about their well-being in how they're going to grow and be as healthy as is their potential, as healthy as possible, get a good education, have good sight, good hearing, good speech and language, good job potential. How are these devices interfering with all of that? So let's look at the whole child health. What we are doing at Health Professionals for Safer Screens is talking about how screens can impact on every part of a child's life. We cannot go into all of these areas of harm today, but please do look at our website for our other resources there. So let's look at how many of these children are on these devices. As I said before, 25% of our 3 to 4 year olds own their own smartphones, and a quarter of that quarter have their own social media accounts. Now, everything we've discussed already, it's clear to see why we are getting increasingly worried about children on these platforms when they are on them so young and have the possibility of reaching such harmful content or becoming addicted to these platforms. The opportunity cost is immense, even before we think of any of the other costs and harms of these devices. On a typical weekday, 1.5 million children spend more time on phones and screens than they do at school. That's equivalent to 14% of children spending 7 hours or more on phones and screens a day. Parents say their child spends an average of 3 hours, 20 minutes on electronic devices outside school in a typical weekday. Nearly 4 in 10 parents of primary school-aged children say their child spends at least 3 hours a day on a device. More than 1 in 10 parents of primary school-aged children say their child spends more than 7 hours a day on their phone, tablet, or playing computer games, longer than they typically be at school. Nearly 4 in 10 parents say their child is missing family time as a result of their time spent on devices. And this increased screen time has come at the expense of other activities. And I don't know about you, but I find it very alarming that the most common activity that these children are partaking in is on a screen. And just look at the trends in outdoor play over the past years. Problematic smartphone use is something we need to be really aware of. It is going to be a term that is more commonly used in clinical settings. It already is in America, but it hasn't quite been categorized as a mental health disorder or serious mental health symptom yet. However, Professor Ben Carter has been doing excellent research at King's College London into the impacts of problematic smartphone use on adolescents. He found that teens with problematic smartphone use are twice as likely to have anxiety, and many are eager to cut down. Even though we're technically not allowed to categorize PSU as an addiction, have a look at the pattern of behaviors, thoughts, and feelings linked to smartphones and this problematic use, and how closely it resembles an addiction. So, teens are feeling panicky or upset when the phone is unavailable. They're finding it difficult to control the amount of time spent on the phone. They're using the phone longer without feeling satisfied, and they're using the phone to the detriment of other enjoyable or meaningful activities. Well, I don't know about you, but that is as close to behavioural addiction as I think we could get with these devices. This is Kit Malthouse, who's the co-sponsor of Josh McAllister's Safer Phones Bill. I can't go into it now because we don't have time, but the Safer Phones Bill, very sadly, was a private member's bill that was adjourned with an inability to vote, no votes allowed for the MPs when it went to debate last week in Parliament. We were there. It was a superb debate. There wasn't a single MP in the room that disagreed with what Josh McAllister was trying to achieve with his Safer Phones Bill. Here is Kit Malthouse saying how disappointed he was about the bill and talking about addiction.
Sadly today, I will be speaking not to celebrate progress, but to lament the gutting of what could have been a landmark bill. This government, sadly, like the last, notwithstanding the online safety bill, has dithered, diluted and capitulated And what remains, I'm afraid, is a hollowed out gesture and an opportunity missed. As the Honourable Gentleman has said, the evidence is strong. The damage is profound and the public support is overwhelming. Documentary after documentary is detailing the significant damage that is being done to our young people on a daily basis. Parent after parent in millions of homes across the land are screaming for help and assistance from the government. As you rightly pointed out, we are allowing smoking for the brain in our youngest of children, with the long-term impact that will have.
Smoking for the brain. I thought that was very eloquently put, and it does epitomise the problems that we are seeing. So this is one of the many case histories that are submitted to us at Health Professionals for Safer Screens anonymously. This was from a senior psychotherapist with 25 years experience. She was talking about a girl she was seeing, one of her patients, aged 15, who was frenetically servicing her screen image on all her platforms, including Instagram, and consumed with self-doubt and lack of self-confidence, plummeting grades at school, increased anxiety, worsened by constantly checking her own and others' profiles and stories. This culminated in panic attacks in any social situation, including going to school, and medication to help manage these. Persuading her to reduce her usage by very small degrees, the suggestion of any more caused her to panic and hyperventilate, eventually resulted in lower anxiety levels. Once she could see the correlation, she started to police herself, even taking Instagram off her phone for a period. This girl was lucky, but I have to say that most children with these difficulties are having to wait too long to get the help that they need, and they're not getting the quality of help that they deserve. So let's move more on to mental health then. There is a mental health crisis in our young in the UK. 500 children a day in England are being referred at the moment to mental health services for anxiety. We've seen massive increases in ADHD, increased depression and anxiety symptoms, sleep disturbance and eating disorders. We've seen a 65% increase in children and young people acute admissions for mental health concerns. And the increases in admissions were greatest among girls aged 11 to 15, with over 500% increase in eating disorder acute admissions for this age group. This is very alarming evidence that has come from a UCL study published in The Lancet, and you may have read it recently in the press. It is really important to address the fact that it's not just the harmful content these children are seeing. It is the perpetual scrolling of content that wouldn't fall under harmful content under the current Online Safety Act, and the drawing in of them into a dialogue that is just not healthy for their self-esteem, and how much this is going on without us knowing. This is a really lovely video produced by Dove in the Self-Esteem Project that I'm going to play for you now.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, how do I want to sit? This.
Water there. I need a drink.
I don't want to ruin the lipstick.
Oh, yeah.
Social media can be good, but it can be bad as well.
In terms of her building her confidence, it can build her confidence.
Marjorie is just trying to find herself now, you know. She's not influenced by social media yet.
Most of the influencers that I've seen have definitely had a positive impact on me.
Hey guys, here's a beauty hack I'm obsessed with.
I am so happy.
Look at how cinched my waist is. Look at how flat my stomach is.
It's the shortcut to flawless skin.
You know that Botox doesn't just reduce wrinkles, right? Baby Botox is amazing. You're never too young to start.
That is not me.
There are these great powders. They stop you feeling hungry so you can always skip breakfast and lunch.
And you have to treat yourself to a chemical peel. They're a total glow up. They burn away the top layers of your skin and let new skin grow through.
Hey, Amujo. If your teeth are uneven, you can always file them down with a nail file.
It's literally so simple.
Fighting your teeth.
Don't put up with your thin lips, sweetie. Lip filler kits let you inject yourself at home. They're my total go-to.
Fake eyelashes are so easy to glue on if you cut your eyelashes off.
There's some really great pills you can use.
Keep telling yourself you're not hungry, you're just thirsty.
Never look bloated again.
Book it into your skin.
Sexiest lashes.
Botox.
Remember, skinny is never finished.
Oh.
It's
Have you actually seen stuff like that?
yeah, a lot. This stuff is on every girl's feed. They're watching, right? I mean, at night when I can't see them.
It's scary to me that my kids are watching this and they think that's how they have to look.
I saw one of the teeth filing videos. I remember that one. I remember seeing that all over. I know this stuff. I can't prevent them from seeing these, but I can talk to them about it.
100% always be talking. And have Peyton know that she can always ask me anything.
My mom has taught me not to listen to people like that and to be proud of who I am.
It is now strongly evidenced that the earlier a child has a smartphone, the more likely they are to be struggling with their mental well-being. And this is a powerful thing to realise, because delaying the smartphones is absolutely beneficial for their mental health. There is increasingly robust evidence that higher total screen time is also associated with all mental health symptoms, depression symptoms, conduct disorder symptoms, and somatization symptoms and ADHD symptoms. And interestingly, the association between screen time and depressive symptoms was stronger among white adolescents compared to Black Asian adolescents. And this has come from Jason Nagata's work with the ABCD study in America, which I really strongly urge you to have a look at. And whilst we're on that, these more serious mental health symptoms, such as psychotic symptoms and delusional disorders, this is quite a worrying study that was brought to our attention just a couple of days ago. This new study came from the Simon Fraser University in Canada, and it's found close links between high levels of social media use and psychiatric disorders that involve delusions, such as body dysmorphic disorder or narcissism. Now, this hijacking of children's brains is a serious problem. And I don't think anyone could deny that adolescents developing psychiatric symptoms as serious as psychotic symptoms and delusional disorders as a result of using these devices is a serious concern, and arguably a preventable concern if we were to moderate their screen use and the age at which they were on these platforms. Bullying is rife online. Look at the statistics there, especially in girls. Why have I put it here straight after that slide? Well, cyberbullying victimization is also known to be associated with greater manic symptoms in adolescence. Educational attainment. A comprehensive study involving nearly 150,000 students from 16 countries conclusively demonstrated that increased smartphone usage during study sessions significantly undermined learning and academic achievement. Since the rise of smartphones and social media in 2012, PISA scores have steadily declined. Out-of-sight policies have also found to not be impactful. Students achieve lower test scores when their phones are in the room than those where the phones are elsewhere or completely removed. The Educational Select Committee report from 2024, May of last year, concluded the overwhelming weight of evidence submitted to us suggests that the harms of screen time and social media use significantly outweigh the benefits for young children, whereas limited use of screens and genuinely educational uses of digital technology can have benefits for older children. And it is clear, they concluded in this report, that was a cross-party alliance with many people from expert backgrounds giving evidence. It is clear that a smartphone ban can have a positive impact on the mental and educational health outcomes of children. So what is the real state of the school guidance? Well, the current advice is the guidance is not legal, and only 11% of schools have implemented a complete ban throughout the day. The National Behaviour Survey found that 38% of teachers and 57% of students said that some, most, or all lessons have been disrupted by mobile phones in the previous week. Schools that ban smartphones entirely are more than twice as likely to be rated outstanding and deliver grades between 1 to 2 grades higher at GCSE than those without. This video, short video of Sophie Winkleman, who is a real leader in this space around this issue of smartphone social media use and EdTech. This video is a very powerful message around us challenging the status quo and maybe seeing tech in a slightly different light.
Some parents do everything in their power to mitigate screen harms at home, but then their children go to school and they experience hours of screen time in the guise of educational technology, or EdTech. Whether that's in the form of iPads and Alexa voice assistants for nursery school children, learning systems like PowerSchool in primary school, or Google Classroom on secondary school devices, who has proven that this deluge of screen education is what's best for our children? No one has. If we step back and view this state of affairs through a compassionate lens, it's fairly understandable. Let's wave aside the fact that only 7% of UK EdTech companies have conducted randomized controlled trials, and just 12% have used third-party certification. Let's put these pesky facts aside. At the beginning, these products seemed futuristically exciting. Well-intentioned schools spent fortunes buying and implementing the latest software and trained their teachers in how to use it. And some of the tools, like no more marking, have been helpful for teachers. But now we have better data on how tech is impacting pupils, so we must press pause and, in many cases, rewind. The Karolinska Institute in Sweden recently published research concluding that there's clear scientific evidence that tools impair rather than enhance learning. Sweden has taken note and been the first country to kick tech out of the classroom, reinvesting in books, paper, and pens. They had the courage to admit that EdTech was a failed experiment. Bill Gates himself said that devices have a lousy record in the classroom. Mark Zuckerberg went to a tech-free school in Boston. Steve Jobs didn't let his own children use iPads. UNESCO says moderation should be the key word relating to classroom tech use. The OECD found that most EdTech has not delivered the academic benefits once promised, and that students who use computers very frequently at school do a lot worse in most learning outcomes. Global test scores in maths, science, and reading are plummeting. I've personally spoken to teachers in British state schools who've acknowledged that classroom tech has hampered the progress of many of their pupils, and the huge boom in tutoring among private school children points to the fact that they're not learning well in school either. So why are we getting so overexcited about EdTech here in Britain? Why are we outsourcing executive function skills to a computer? Why are we allowing exam boards to take every subject online by 2030? All the emerging research should generate a pulling up of the drawbridge rather than the open-armed embrace that we're seeing.
There's a new report, just to be aware of, really, from Parent Kind, looking at the reality of smartphone use in schools, and it's still pretty prolific. 1 in 5 teenagers are disturbed in lessons every day by others using smartphones in lessons. 13% of children aged 11 to 15 tell us that their school never confiscates phones, even if pupils break the rules. 6 in 10 parents of children aged 11 to 15 want a blanket ban on social media for all children under 16. So back to some physical harms now. The eyesight is deteriorating in our children. We've seen a massive increase in the number of children who are short-sighted, and speaking to the ophthalmology and optometry experts on our group, this is set to get worse. With excessive smartphone use, the risk of developing short-sightedness goes up 30%. You combine that with excessive computer screen use and it goes up to 80%. There is a positive link between smartphone usage and eye fatigue, blurred vision and irritated or burning eyes. It costs the NHS about £11,000 per child to see them through with glasses and eye appointments, but also think about children from a deprived background, often living in chaos, aren't brought to appointments, and how that must impact on, frankly, their ability to see and concentrate and perform to their maximum potential at school. The knock-ons are worrying. We know, because it's strongly evidence-based, that spending at least 13 hours a week outside reduces the likelihood of children becoming short-sighted, and screen time is reducing outdoor time. We've seen that on the graph that I've shown previously. We have a big problem here to turn the tide, to go back on the basis of this harm alone is a reason in itself to try and get children off screens a lot more than they are now and get them outside more each day. 70% of teens do not get enough sleep. Smartphones significantly impact sleep patterns and the ability to fall or stay asleep. Blue light, which impacts melatonin and circadian rhythms, has been shown to push sleep back twice as long as coffee, and doom scrolling means teens lose track of time. This lack of sleep has impacts on our preschoolers. It impacts on their napping and sleeping, which is vital for their development if they're on screens too much. For teens, it affects school attendance and attainment, as well as mood swings and mental health. Here is Professor Ben Carter explaining why screens impact sleep.
There's overwhelming evidence supports the impact of mobile devices, and particularly smartphones, on poor sleep. And there's 3 reasons or mechanisms why we think this occurs. The first is the suppression of melatonin and how that disrupts circadian rhythm. The second is the direct effect displacement of using your device late at night. And the third is the interaction with one's peers and waiting and anticipating a response linked to the overstimulating content that can be seen from social media.
So this leads me on to talk about parental screen use. There's some new data out in February of this year from Nagata and his team. And he has studied quite extensively the impacts of bedtime screen use and found that this was the strongest predictor of children's exposure to mature media. And I think this is a very important piece of information to instruct interventions or advice for parents, that it is very risky to send children to bed with access to their device because they are significantly more at risk of accessing this content at night. As part of this study from Nagata's team, they moved on to the impact of parental screen habits and found that parental screen use in front of children increased the likelihood of exposure to age-inappropriate content, and proactive parental monitoring and setting limits on screen time were linked to less mature media consumption. Again, a positive impact there. Parents making changes has a positive effect on how the child behaves on their digital devices. So keeping on the theme of parental screen use, I just want to share with you this short clip, which is coverage of some new research which has come out from New York University, looking at the impacts of parental smartphone use on young children.
Comes into a laboratory. She's asked to scroll and type and focus on her screen just for 2 minutes. The videotape showing something maybe adults don't see when we're home alone.
This is not about parent guilting because parents feel so torn and sometimes we have to get things done.
This is 2.5-year-old Jensen.
I think he's about to suss out that she's on the device.
It takes just 15 seconds for Jensen to start his campaign to get Mom Melissa to look up from that screen.
There's some other thing to do, Mommy.
And he just walks in. Yeah.
This mom is helping researchers replicate a study for us. She's doing something very difficult for her. Asked to keep looking down. And remember, just for 2 minutes.
Come on, Mommy.
He repeats the plea 7 times.
We have another thing to do, Mommy. Mommy! You don't not listen to me, Mommy. Listen to me, Mom.
And here is another fact about grown-ups and phones. On average, we unlock our phones 80 times a day.
Cell phones, I think, are qualitatively different than other forms of distraction because they're with us all the time. They're ubiquitous. They have been engineered to grab our attention.
In the old days, phones were chained to the wall, but today a child sees our heads go down, our eyes rivet on something or someone else.
What you have is that little sneak down. You've all noticed it at dinner conversations. And basically it means I'm not talking to you anymore. I'm pretending to talk to you.
And no one can be sure how long before your eyes look up again. This is little Hunter, who seemed to have learned when she has to compete with the phone, she might as well just give up.
She's sitting down and she's waiting. She knows her mother is not available right now.
I don't know about you, but I found that footage firstly a bit upsetting, but unbelievably powerful as to the impacts in such a short period of time of using these devices and the reactions in the children. So there is increasing evidence that parental smartphone usage is impacting on child development. Studies have shown that mothers who use smartphones during breastfeeding had a delayed response to when the baby had finished, and they responded late. The number of audible phone notifications parents report receiving per hour was negatively associated with infants' vocabulary in controlled observations of 18 to 25-month-olds. And children interpret a parent looking at a phone as a lack of responsiveness. Parental phone use is associated with still face. It's a very compelling, upsetting video, still face, video of research. So I urge you to watch that as well if you look up the still face experiment. So an expressionless appearance that often's interpreted as depression by the beholder, and this can further impact a child's development of emotional skills. And this diversity of the impacts of parental smartphone usage is worrying and growing, and a real window of opportunity for us to intervene there and make sure parents know how important this is. And parents' actions are key to good digital practices within a family. And this is just some lovely guidance that's very clearly illustrated from pediatric research carried out by Jason Nagata in America. But we've got lots of other infographics that we can share with you and guidance if you check out our website. So on to smartphones and the way they can hinder language development. Well, there is compelling evidence across many longitudinal studies that show that greater screen use is associated with lower language skills and developmental delays in communication. For 3-year-olds, every minute of screen time significantly alters their daily interactions, leading to them hearing 7 fewer adult words, speaking 5 fewer words themselves, and engaging in 1 less conversation each day. The average 3-year-old screen time usage currently means that they are missing 1,100 adult words, 840 vocalizations, and 194 conversations a day. Some very compelling peer-reviewed research that Dr. Megan Gath has been undertaking in the University of Canterbury, New Zealand. Her study showed that children who watched more than 90 minutes a day of direct screen time were at the age of 4.5 years, and then when they were observed again at 8 years in this longitudinal research, were found to be below average for vocabulary, communication, writing, numeracy, and letter fluency. They also had poorer social skills and were more likely to play alone, less liked by other children, less considerate, and less likely to share toys. The long-term impacts of delayed language development are very serious. They're 6 times more likely to be behind in English, and children are 11 times more likely to be behind in maths. There's a strong link between mental health and emotional and behavioural disorders and speech and language challenges. 81% of children with these disorders also have significant speech and language challenges. They're twice as likely to be unemployed, and greater than 60% of young offenders have language difficulties. So how do Gen Z feel looking back over their younger years when smartphones were basically ubiquitous with their childhood and social media? Well, it's very interesting to look at the results of a March 2025 report, so this month, put out by the National Education Union, the New Britain Project, and More in Common. They have found that for parents, social media and online harms top the list of impacts on their child's mental health. 86% of parents support increasing the digital age of consent to 16 so that people under 16 cannot access social media. Most parents said that they would like their children's schools to have tighter smartphone policies. And Gen Z Britons overwhelmingly think social media does more harm than good to young people. 50% of Gen Z say they wish they had spent less time on their phones when they were growing up. And children want change. Generation Isolation, in their recent report, had these key findings. Among others, I urge you to look at this report. 76% of young people spend most of their free time on screens. 24% of young people spend most of their free time on their smartphone, making it the most time-consuming activity outside of school. 52% of young people that spend most time on their smartphone would like to reduce this, and 18% of young people spend most of their free time alone. 48% of young people spend most of their free time in their bedroom. So if our children really need a phone, and many parents would rightly argue, and children, that they do. But now we're looking for devices that are somewhere between the brick and the internet-enabled, all singing, all dancing smartphone. The HMD and Explorer have produced this phone that was released and launched by them a couple of weeks ago. And it's an option of a non-internet-enabled phone, which has parental controls built in. It also has a facility called Harm Block, which prevents children from taking and sharing naked pictures. It doesn't have access to social media, but they can message, they can call, their parents can track where they are, and they have access to maps. I can't wait to have one of these in my hand to see how effective it is and how satisfied parents are with it and how easy it is to use. And my basic ask from this project, because we did consult with them in their process of building this product, was that we need a device that feels safe when we get it out of the box. So let's see. So to conclude, smartphones pose a specific and insidious risk. Simply educating children on how to use them properly is not sufficient, and we would argue it's setting them up for a fail. Our basic advice is that we keep the screens big and in a public place, in a family household or school. And also we think about their posture when we're on these phones. If you check out our other resources, we can tell you about the evidence around the harms, particularly to our neck when we're in the scrolling position. The opportunity cost is immense that these devices are causing and sucking up all this time in our children's lives. But actually, it's the least of our concerns when we consider the other plethora of harms. We know that adults cannot regulate their use successfully, and yet we are expecting children whose brain development and self-regulatory and self-protectory processes are far from fully formed. The rising statistics of harm and the increased causative and copious amounts of correlative data are alarming us, and we need to now apply the precautionary principle. And that is, we should be thinking about removing these harmful products until they can be proven as safe. These products were never proven as safe before they were put in the hands of so many of our children. We need to be doing this rather than waiting for evidence of more harm. So we feel that legislation is desperately needed to restrict social media access to our under 16s because the risks are far outweighing the benefits. We need legislation around a child-safe phone backed up by government, and these products need to be verified as safe by someone such as the Child Commissioner. We need public health campaigns funded by the NHS, visible to all parents from the point of conception before even considering having a child. We need to be educating on the safer use of these devices. We need people to be educated on the fact that not all screens are the same, and that parental smartphone use, if not mindful or excessive, carries its own risks. So there we are. That's the end of the talk. Thank you very much for tuning in, listening or watching. If you've got any questions at all, don't hesitate to contact me, Becky at healthprofessionalsforsaferscreens.org, or check out our websites or our socials and LinkedIn for more of our resources and talks. Many thanks.